Hey everyone, Jay here. I want to make sure you know that a new group is starting for my teacher training, and you have until September 7th to take advantage of early bird pricing and get 40% off. Maybe you're someone who wants to revitalize your teaching. Maybe you want to expand your knowledge base so you can feel more confident about what you're doing and why. Or maybe you just want a vehicle where you can listen to and talk with other people who share in your passion for studying yoga. If so, I encourage you to check it out, see if it makes sense. The program is flexible and designed to be co-creative, so it can fit into our lives and feel like a support rather than a burden. And you have until September 7th to take advantage of early bird pricing and get 40% off. To find out more and register, go to jbrownyoga.com/training. All right, the bridge has been made between the moment I sit here and have just pressed record and you, wherever you are, having just pressed play. Here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. Whether you are a new listener or a returning friend, let me welcome you. Great to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you had a good week, everyone who is returning. If you are like me and you have children, I imagine it's like a week or two before they go back to school for you also. And for people who don't have children, this last week of summer is when the kids just seem to be at their most frustrating and annoying ever. We're so ready for them to go back to school. It's unbelievable. And it's particularly true right now as I'm working hard to get the yoga center up and running. Most of you know I'm opening a yoga center. And last week I was really in a high-minded place around it. And I was saying, last time I was in such a rush, and this time I'm going to be patient and I'm going to enjoy the process. And that is true. I am being patient and enjoying the process. However, now that we've really gotten in there and looked at every inch of it and basically decided all the things that we want to do to it and all the things that we feel like we need to do to it before I feel like it's ready to have people start coming to classes, it's a crazy list. We've moved from an excitement period to an overwhelmed period, I would say. Finding the time to do it and just realizing how much work it is. Okay, I'm going to paint the front this color, and not realizing how many hours it actually takes to do that. And I'm in my 50s now. I'm not in my 30s. So, it's just a lot. And we've had a few 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I just definitely have been feeling a lot more overwhelmed this week than I did last week. And I really do want to be patient. And like I said, this is the stuff that has to be done now, because if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. At the same time, if you let yourself, it'll just take forever. So I have given myself some deadlines. I'm looking to start classes in the first 2 weeks of September. We're going to have an opening party towards the end of the month, towards the end of September. And I want to have it pretty much ready. There can be some things that we could leave for later on if need be. But in general, we got, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks of crunch time to really make it happen. This first week is the kids still home. After they get back into school, I think we'll have a lot more space. But all in all, it's going pretty good. The colors are picked. Things are happening. It's coming alive. And maybe in a future episode, we'll have some conversation around what it is to make a space and bring things to life. But in any case, ongoing, and I will continue to keep you posted. other than that, I have been hearing from quite a few listeners and fellow yoga teachers over this last week or two, really. People checking in with me about what they see happening in the yoga world. Because I've been talking about that a lot on the show, and it's mixed reports. You know, centers continuing to close and then new possibilities popping up and people trying different things. And I certainly talk about this today with my returning guest, Todd Norian. Todd has been here once before, and we ran into each other recently. So wonderful to meld minds with him. We not only discuss like the current landscape and how teachers are adapting and how we're adapting, but we also get into some bigger questions of purpose, and Todd shares some of his teachings on Tantra, and we get into some really cool stuff, and it was wonderful to have this moment with him again. I'm very happy to be sharing it with you. Real quick before we get to it, let me mention that if you're enjoying the show and you want to connect with me in other ways, there's lots of opportunities for that. There's ongoing live classes. There's a weekly discussion group. There is a new teacher training group starting, as well as my on-demand videos and becoming a podcast premium subscriber so you can be a supporter and enjoy the full-length archives of the show. All of my stuff can be found at jbrownyoga.com. Okay, y'all, I think we'll just keep it short and sweet and leave it there. I will touch base with you on the other side, but let's go ahead and get to it. Let's listen to this conversation that I had with Todd Norian. Hello?
Hello, Jay.
Hello, Todd.
Now I can visualize what you look like. I mean, not exactly, but I have a memory.
It's true. We just saw each other not too long ago. If you want to have the cameras on, you can. I leave it up to the guest these days. It's entirely up to you if you like the visual, but I'm okay with the voice. What do you want?
I think the visual would be just more engaging. That's my
Let's do it.
My sense of it. I didn't dress for the occasion, but here
That's the thing. The only reason I don't start with that is I don't want people to have to like feel like they need to get dressed up and like do the background and the lighting like we've all been producing Zoom videos or whatever. And I want people to be able to like be like in their pajamas with a cup of tea or something and not feel like, oh, I'm being recorded, I gotta look good and stuff. So that's why I don't default. I'm not going to use it or post it or anything. So
yeah, you just post audio, right? So
yeah, I'm sticking with that. I mean, I've had people who suggest that I should do video, but I like that it's just audio for me personally. I think you have to engage it a little bit differently. I do both. I watch video podcasts and listen to audio podcasts, but I like the idea that it's more like old radio on the internet.
Yeah, that's great. And this way, like, I like seeing your expression, and, you know, I sort of like, you know, I'll say something and I get it from your voice for sure, but then like to actually see you, I think I'll feel a little bit more connected. But I'm open either way. If you get sick of looking at me, you can.
No, not at all. I'm happy for this to be us engaging together today. Todd, I'm recording. I know you listen to the show. We just begun already, unless you have some objection to that. I don't think you said anything you need to be concerned about. But that's why that got changed over time, as you know. In any case, as you mentioned, we did just see each other a few weeks ago. And I'm very happy to talk about some of the things that you mentioned in your email, specifically this Svatantrya and freedom idea that you threw out there. I think there's a lot there that I would be interested to discuss with you.
Sure.
But before we get into like high concepts, I have to admit, like these days, especially in the last few days, my head has been way more at like pragmatic realities that we're facing. And I am kind of curious to just touch base with you on like what it is to still be a yoga teacher in 2024. You know, we saw each other at the Berkshire Yoga Festival last month. I guess my first question is, how did that go for you? Did you have a good time? Did it go well? What was that experience like?
I had a wonderful time there. It was a blast. In fact, maybe it's because it's kind of in my backyard. I live in the Berkshires. But it just felt like a real coming home. And I felt this incredible love connection between all the people that were there and the presenters. It just seemed like there was no ego. And maybe it's a reflection of the host of the conference, you know, that I felt like from the beginning there was just a lot of authenticity, good intention, and I had a great time. And you know, I don't see a lot of those presenters very often, but I happened to bump into Sean Korn when I was there, and we just were so excited to see each other. I've known her for like years. I've seen her at conferences, you know, over the years. I just hadn't seen her since COVID, and we just embraced. And it was so great because usually, you know, oh, it's a little hug, then it's over, friendly. We embraced for over 30 seconds. I don't know what happened. She just like fell into me. And as a friend, it was just like I was holding her and feeling this incredible connection of two yogis, two beings who were doing pretty much the same thing, like in service to the higher light in the universe. And I've always had her back, and I've always felt like she's had my back, you know? And in that moment, I just felt this incredible unity, and there was just no ego. And then when we shared, you know, she was telling me a little bit about her, I don't think this is revealing too much, but just her struggles since COVID and her now like coming back. And she felt like she just got so exhausted from kind of over teaching, and she's reassessing. And I could so relate to that. Like the Tantra that I teach is all about how to serve with the balance of who you are as an individual and what you're putting out there. And, you know, if we're putting out too much, even as yoga teachers, we can get into burnout. But I think yoga is ultimately designed, like as teachers, that the service we're providing others influences us first. Like that's, but you have to be sensitive to it, because we can just overgive and give, like, but then we start giving our reserves. And I think this reflection back is how to maintain a healthy sense of self. It's almost like, how do we create a healthy self boundary while we're giving so much of ourselves out there? And it was just the most beautiful exchange that we had. And I felt the humanity of it all, you know? I mean, even though I think like she's a rock star, totally. But she's not a superhuman. She's just, you know, been really great. She has an awesome message. But even the superstars, we could say, are limited. I mean,
let me say something about what you just said. I had a similar experience. I think, first of all, and I talked about this with Leslie a little bit at the conference when we recorded together.
Yeah, great.
There was kind of like an appreciation for someone putting together the event and people like making the effort to come, and that spirit of like unity and like a less ego thing had to do with that. Like, it doesn't matter. There's been a leveling of the playing field in terms of just everything getting so decimated by the pandemic. And whether you were like a grassroots teacher, you know, or you're Sean Korn, we all have had to like kind of face the same realities of like the market and like how yoga is happening, and then the move online and the whole thing, and then the kind of backlash of everything being online, and now us realizing, oh my God, I gotta be back in the same room with people. Like, I think all of that. Some of it, though, the reassessing does have to do with just because like shifts in the way that people consume yoga or go to yoga classes. And I guess that's the thing. You two knew each other. I get it. I have that same feeling where before everything got decimated, there was like a circuit, and you would be on the circuit and you saw people.
Right.
And now it's like on the other side of it, and the circuit's not really there. Like it's gone. And so we had that event, and it was well put together, and people came in with a certain spirit to it, and it felt great.
And I have memories of conferences. I mean, way back in the Yoga Journal conferences that I was never a big star in those, but I was invited to present, and there was this feeling of joy and like yoga is such a great thing. And look, we brought all these people out. When I was studying Anusara yoga back in the day, John Friend had a class with 800 people and I was assisting. It's like there were like people in different zip codes. It was just like massive. And I felt like the Berkshire Yoga Festival brought that feeling back again. But not in an egotistical way, like what you were saying. There was a real unity consciousness and an appreciation of the challenges. And it's almost like those who showed up at the conference were almost like the survivors. Like
that's what it felt like. Yes.
Like my business went way down and it's picking up a little bit now, but it's like I didn't give up. I was like, I'll never give up. Like this is my life. This is my love. This is my gift in a way. I mean, I feel called in the very core of my being to do what I'm doing. And so whatever challenges come, I'm never going to stop. It's going to morph and change as I go along. Yeah. And there was kind of a little recognition of that, both the presenters and the practitioners who showed up. It's like, hey, you showed up, you came back.
We haven't given up yet.
And now we can party.
Yes, exactly. I really appreciate what you just said, because that is the kind of deep reflection a lot of yoga teachers had to do. We were sort of forced to get by either solely online or in other ways. And then you had to decide, well, how important is it for me to teach? Like, do I need to keep being a yoga teacher? And I've often said, I remember over the years, like, if it stopped working, like people stopped coming to class and I couldn't do it anymore, then that would mean I would have to do something else. I didn't want to cling to like the identity of being a yoga teacher, because that gets into an ego place that I think very well screws up the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, I've always felt like having the ability to actually pay your way while you're teaching yoga is what has allowed the teachers who inspired me most to do their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've always wanted to advocate for there to be a possible way for it to work. And so when you say that, like, you've stuck with it and your business went down, mine too, I think everybody saw that. Like there was a bump up at one point during the pandemic. I don't know. Most of us got like an internet bump and we were like, holy shit, for a second. We were like, oh my God, like I made enough money this year online. Is that going to be a real thing? But it's not. I mean, it is. I still have that. Like I still am able to connect with people who don't live where I am. And that is the value. And that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. But the big bump has decreased. And I think there's really a contrast now between there's value to online training and there's value to live in person, and they're not the same. And that live in person is really, I didn't know how much I missed the personal contact, because, I come from a transmission-based lineage. Living at Kripalu and all those years, especially the early years.
Everybody can go back and listen to the other conversation I had with Todd last time he was on, if you want to hear the bio stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yes, the live in person, because it's the context, right? There's a context for the experience, which is you guys both showed up and are in the same room.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is a greater possibility for a transmission back and forth. Not that the Shakti is limitless. It's free. It will happen through online. And I've seen it because I've done meditation retreats and with other teachers as well. So I think maybe the pandemic taught us that, hey, there's more options here. You can do online, but don't forget about the live in person. And how many studios had to close and they have not reopened? Like I have many friends who they just hung it up, you know? Yeah. So I think seeing everybody again at the Berkshire Yoga Festival, and it was like fabulous weather
and fun, and and a cool place, and
it was fun, and there were like classes outside that were like wild, ecstatic dance, and like with that in the background, like how can you not just smile?
I know, but if you were doing like the subtle sound bowl workshop in the room there, you were annoyed and pissed off. But I was like you, I didn't care. I was like just happy to see there being an event, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I really think you're right on in terms of there being a difference between live in person and live online. I think there's certainly a place for both, and they can actually happen simultaneously. It's not, I've done plenty of that, and I don't think that's as hard as sometimes teachers make it out to be. Yeah. But I think what I've observed and the kind of, I don't know, revelation that I've had to own up to in myself, or not own up to, embrace, was that in my view, the teachers who have been most effective online are often able to be that effective because they had years of in-person teaching experience first that they're bringing to this like medium that we're using right now, you and me. But having met also teachers who only learned yoga online, like got their certifications online and hadn't ever even taught in person before, it was just clear. I was like, oh, okay, there's, like you say, that's what you mean when you say it's about transmission. And that word sometimes gets kind of, I don't know, meant to be like some kind of woo-woo thing, but really it has to do with just all the communication that happens or the exchange that happens between two people, like non-verbally, when you're just hanging out with someone. Like people come in the room with a certain quality, you know. I'll tell you one story about this, which is years ago, I had a private student, an elderly woman who had very bad emphysema, and I would go to do like pranayama exercise with her. She had studied with Swami Shivananda, and she like was a long time yogi, but I would come and practice with her. And later on, she was deteriorating and we didn't really do much practice. Like I would often just do things like read Shakespeare to her. Like I just would sit with her. And at one point I felt insecure about getting money from her because I felt like I'm not even teaching you yoga. I'm so happy to just come and spend time with you. And she said, and I'll never forget, she said, "Oh, Jay, you bring silence with you. And that's worth so much more than I pay you."
Wow.
And I just thought, oh, okay. So like there's a thing of if you are a practitioner or teacher and you're doing yoga in yourself and kind of bringing yourself to certain frequencies or however people like to think of that, and you show up in a certain way to a practice with someone, you bring a certain something with you, and that is felt and transmitted. That's what you're saying is transmission.
That's it. Yeah. It's like people feel your sadhana. And I think they feel it online too. I get feedback like,
absolutely.
But it's amplified live in person. That's all I can say. It's somehow the Shakti has a little bit easier time than going through the distance and the networks.
Yeah. And you know what? I think also there's some kind of new purpose behind it than there used to be. Like for the same reason, like we might have taken it for granted before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And for the same reason that you just said, like a lot of teachers have just like, you know what, I'm going to hang it up because it's just like, I don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
There's new purpose behind trying. It's harder now than it was. I guess I'm curious about that. Like, how have you managed to keep it going for yourself in terms of in person? Do you teach at centers? Do you have your own classes that you organize?
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, and I don't want to boast around this, but I feel like I've landed in a really good balance between the online membership that I have where students can study with me on a regular basis, just twice a week, which is really great, 4 classes. And it's just enough. I do Tuesdays and Thursdays, which allows Friday through Monday for my travel. So what I did is I freed up my weekends in a way so that I get the travel. And once I started setting this up since, I guess it was fall 2022, I started to get booked. And it was like, oh my God, I'm teaching every single weekend, last fall, this spring, and then I'm looking at another fall that's just completely booked. And yeah, I'm going to studios who have an interest in what it is that I have to offer. And I have a lot of students that I've trained who are teachers. I just have connections from all the years. And there are these pockets of places all around that are wanting to bring teachers into their communities. And somehow I just found that. So,
see, that's some divine say, if you ask me, because those kinds of long time relationships or connections or those pockets that you're saying, like those are, I would imagine, connected or in some way a result of all the practice and work and relationship that you've had over the years,
Yeah. And I think as teachers, we need to look at what is the level of our own dedication to our practice. And I think that's been my whole focus. I remember I got into yoga because I was so enthralled with the concept of enlightenment and how yoga made me feel. And then all the levels of yoga. So it's not just physical fitness, but mental, emotional fitness, the fitness of my spiritual heart and all that all come together to actually help guide me to have more happiness in life. I mean, it's just so simple. Like, aren't we all looking for happiness? We're all like looking for freedom from suffering. Like that is the underlying motivation or longing inside. It's in our DNA. We're not longing for suffering and all that. And the philosophy that I teach, a whole lineage of Tantra philosophy, is all that life is a dance, and it's here just for the play of it. So my question is, are you playing? And so I think what's happened is I will use any means I can to get my message out, because I really believe people are hungry to feel their heart, to come home to their heart, to have a better vision of like a positive reality. Like I teach, like everything in life is for our awakening. Life has your back, even when it feels like it doesn't, because challenges never come to put us down. Challenges only come when you're ready for a promotion, like when you're ready to rise up. And so this is a perspective, and it's a choice. It's not easy, but it has helped me to embrace every challenge that comes rather than turn it inward, where I said, oh, there's something wrong with me. See, I come from a history of shame and unworthiness and all that. We all have our conditioning. This conditioning is what creates the meaning that we put behind everything that's happening in our life. And it's not what happens to us in our life. Like everybody has trauma. It's the meaning we assign to it. So we have to get at what is influencing the meaning that is making me diminish myself because I have certain challenges, rather than, oh my God, I need to open to a bigger energy, or this challenge is coming at the perfect time for me to make a shift. Pain is the teacher. So, but are we listening? Are we being students of it? So I think there's a much deeper yoga going on that I can't always teach in my classes. I can in my teacher trainings, because we're going deep there, and I'm attracting people that want that depth. And the Tantra teaching is all about, we are concealed. Hey man, your heart is concealed, and that's part of the program, because without being concealed, we would never have the joy of revelation. See, there's always a positive clip to all the crap that's going on. And now, like politically, I don't know that you want to mention it.
Oh, wait. Before you go political.
Oh my God.
You just said like a bunch of stuff there, especially also this bit about like what you teach in your classes and what you teach in your training. That's something we can get to also. But first, you said a number of things that I really appreciate that I kind of want to reemphasize.
Sure.
One is even the idea of like the process of yoga learning I always remember when I first got to yoga, the thing that I really liked about it is that it was called practice. Like you had a practice that you did. And I knew from like being a bit of a musician and like other things, like practice was a thing that you did so that you would then be equipped to play in the way that you want to play. Beautiful. When the show happens or whatever, when the time comes, you know?
Absolutely.
And just that. And I had been in the theater, which was similar. You had rehearsals to prepare for the performance.
Yes.
So I always really liked that that's what it was, that I could do that. And I wanted to really do my practice well. I wanted to be disciplined, determined. And I think for a while that meant asana. And I definitely like overdid asana, which I think we might have talked about last time we talked.
Yeah.
And then it does become about this like subtler practice. Now, I don't know if I always like to use the word happiness as much as you do, like as a goal of any sort. But I do appreciate what you were saying about like freedom from suffering, which is different than just freedom in general. But I suppose getting to this question of, since we're not, I want to stay with some pragmatic matters before we totally go into the high concepts still. And I want to ask you about what you said about what you're teaching in your classes and what you're teaching in training, and how teaching regular classes, like a 60-minute drop-in class at some center, like, I don't know, like you have the 4 classes a week. Are those just online classes, or are you doing in-person classes during the week? Like separate from like the travel gigs, do you have any regular like in-person classes that you're doing?
No, I do 2 meditations and 2 asana classes a week. They're right after each other. So 2 on Tuesday morning and 2 on Thursday morning. And that's it. All the other time is basically for my play and also marketing. You know, I just recorded 14 reels yesterday. I do these batch reels, which are, you know, the social media thing. So
we can talk about that. I don't know how effective those things are. Maybe they're working for you. I don't know. But I guess what I want to get to, because I think it's something that has to do with what we were talking about at the beginning, like the differences between online classes and in-person classes, or maybe not, because actually the in-person classes are like this too, where back in the day, my classes were much longer. I remember an hour and 45-minute class.
Wow.
Or even hour and 30-minute classes for a long time. And in those classes, you had more space, it seemed to me.
Absolutely.
And you filling that space wasn't just like more asana sequences. It tended to be more other kind of teaching or offerings, whether that's meditation, or I found there was just like, especially before the 200-hour teacher training days, there was just yoga education in the classes. So they would talk about sutras, or they would talk about Tantra in class as part of the practice experience. But that did shift. And at some point, the classes became more like practice sessions. And they're only 60 minutes long now. And I have embraced that, because like sometimes people just want to practice. They don't necessarily want to like consider high concepts of yoga philosophy, and that's fine. But where are the opportunities for the talk and the dialogue and like the other teaching? Transmission.
I get it in. So I do a 40-minute meditation. It includes pranayama, mantra chanting, and I always include a tantric teaching. So I found a way to do it in 40 minutes. Today, you know, I taught about aparigraha, possessiveness, and non-possessiveness. And so that was the theme. And then I think every teacher has to figure out what their style is and what's important to them. And to me, asana is important, but so is the place where you're coming from. And I joke about this, but I say I know a lot of miserably flexible people.
Ain't that the truth?
Right. So I always try to give a balance of body, mind, heart in my yoga. So I do a fair amount of teaching, because what's really important to me are these little pithy tantric secrets to finding more joy. And I have to broaden out just for a second. This will just take
go ahead.
1 second. Okay. So the reason why I talk about happiness is because in the Tantra, which you know, the sole purpose for all of this that's happening, like Nataraja, the Lord of the Dance, is dancing the eternal rhythms of the universe into existence for no other reason than for the delight of it. And that our true nature is joy and bliss. So the nature of the universe is described in Tantra as Svatantrya, freedom. But then the nature of freedom is ananda, or bliss. We could just say happiness, you know? Because when you get free of a pain, you instantly have relief and you feel like a little bit of joy. You know, when I have my migraine headache, which I get occasionally, I'm miserable during it. And as soon as it lifts, it's like the clouds went away, the humidity just lessened, and I feel energized. I feel so good. I'm free from that suffering, and I feel happy. So happiness in the tantric view is really what our true nature is underneath it all. And I know there's a lot of teaching around that.
Would you distinguish between happiness and joy? Like you said, finding more joy, which I feel way better about than becoming happy. Like, not that I don't experience happiness, but it feels trickier. Do you distinguish between something like joy and happiness? I know that's a very fine, hair-splitting question, but would you?
Let's split some hairs, because I do distinguish between happiness. Okay, so the best analogy is the ocean. So on the surface of the ocean are the waves, and we can either choose to be a buoy, which is we go up and down, up and down, up and down. We have no control. Life keeps happening to me. Or we become an anchor, where you sink your anchor deep down in the depths of the soul, all the way to the bottom of the ocean, which is the source of all that is. And that's what I'm calling unreasonable happiness. Happiness for no reason at all. In other words, you just have a day where you feel happy-go-lucky. Why? No reason, you know? And that happiness for no reason is the anchor back into the source of who we are, which we can say joy, we can say bliss, we can say ananda. And it helps us maintain our sense of equanimity on the surface, so that even when we're sad, we're happy. Even when we go up, something good happens to us, we're not so attached to it. And when something bad happens to us, we're not just denying it or trying to push it away. I mean, the source of happiness is basically wanting what you have, you know? And not wanting what you don't have. In other words, this idea of clinging to what we want, hoping it won't change, is a recipe for sadness. Or what we get, we push away and wish that didn't happen. And we have aversion, you know, it's raga and dvesha, which is raga is a kind of clinging to the desires that we have. And dvesha is that idea of aversion to what's happening. So,
all right. Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, you went there, so let's just go there, I suppose.
Sorry.
I'm joking completely. I knew we would go there because I had a sense of what you sent me and what you were writing about. I guess what I would say to some of the things that you just said, I agree with much of it. But I guess this idea of like, there's no reason, that leaves me a little bit questioning. Like, okay, so I'm with you. Okay, the analogy of the ocean and bobbing up and down on the ocean. Okay, and I agree that there's a way for you to be in a harmony with the swell of the ocean, and even like the engagement of your own breath and the pulsing movement of your own breath, kind of in the relationship to the swell of the ocean, is a specific image that I've used all the time in my own practice. So when I hear you use that metaphor, and I think of my practice, I feel like, oh, I get what you're saying. And there is a way to kind of not have the waves be throwing you around and tossing you, but you're able to kind of like be in the waves and with the waves in a way that feels like you're still, you can have happiness in there. You feel there's still joy, a thread of joy that's running through your life and making it feel worthwhile.
Yeah.
I get that. What I don't feel so comfortable with is this idea of an anchor that's like kind of like you sort of, I don't know, that image to me made me feel like you're in control. Now, it's not that there isn't some facility that we're gaining. Absolutely. Some amount of say and some amount of control. So I'm not adverse to the idea of control. But when you talk about unbounded freedom and it being for no reason, that's where my mind immediately is going to, okay, well, if we're not clinging, we're giving over to something, what are we giving over to? It has to be assumed that this is an intelligent thing that's, like you said earlier, you equated it to, you just said life. You're like, life has got our back or something like that. I can't remember what word you used.
Yeah, life has your back.
Okay. So,
well, I
life
think,
has our back. It's not for no reason, isn't it? It can't be for no reason.
Well, this is the paradox, Jay. Why is Nataraja dancing? And I think the unwillingness to give up reason keeps you on the horizontal axis, which is all karma oriented. Karma is cause and effect. It's based on causality. It's based on probability. There's consequences. So that is operating. But there's no soul evolution on that level. It's just basically, I mean, it's sort of like you're staying in the waves. But Tantra is giving us a whole, and that's the 25 tattvas, by the way, which was from the Samkhya and Yoga tradition, one of the 6 darshans of Hindu philosophy. Okay, they only go to the 25 tattvas. Tantra comes along and adds, hey, there's 11 more. There's 36. And they're called Leelic tattvas, which are, Leela means divine play. And play, this whole other notion of the universe, is that there's another axis in life. It's the vertical axis, which is what produces the transformation that lifts us up and out of habitual dullness, mediocrity, and basically depression, no motivation. And so this vertical axis is based on the concept of Leela. And what governs Leela? A sense of randomness.
Ooh, see, wait.
Okay.
So it all comes down to the play of the universe and it's random. Really? You think it's random? There's no intelligence or plan or anything to it? It's just random?
Well, you have to keep listening to me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I love your enthusiasm. You know what? I love arguing with you. I mean,
no, it's not an argument. It's not an argument.
So much love for you right now.
And you, Todd, believe me, you definitely.
It's good. I can't. I'm like, see, if you could see me. I mean, you can't, but I'm getting a cramp from my smile. Okay, so what governs Leela is a sense of entanglement, meaning everything affects everything else. We hear about the butterfly flaps its wings in Japan and it forces weather, in the US. So there's a sense of interconnection, so entanglement, and a sense of randomness. Things just happen. And a sense of luck. Now, that is completely opposite to karma. And I talk about this in my book. I give the example that one of my teachers always gives about the Tour de France. And there was a cyclist who prepared, he was expected to win. And like several years back, right before he was like 2 miles out from the finish line, he flatted. He lost the race. Then the next year, he prepared and did everything. He did all the karma to get himself ready. And when he was asked, how did you win this race this time? He said, well, I had a good night's sleep. I did my carb load. I had my electrolytes. I tapered my workout in just the right way. And then I had the lucky. He won because he didn't flat this time. He won because things lined up for him outside of his control that made it possible for him to have the victory. But the year before, he did all the same things. He did not change his routine at all, but he flatted. So it makes sense to me that there are these other forces operating in the universe, the vertical axis, but then there's karma. We have to get good at managing our karma. And where those two axes intersect is really the sweet spot where, that's where the mastery that you were talking about dwells. You practice to the extent that you could to have the best performance that you could have. And then at some point in the performance, and we know this in music, you got to let go. And always when we let go, in the moment of that performance, something bigger than what we could have ever imagined will flow through us. And for me in music, because I'm a musician too, that was, I savored that moment when I would play and something more than what I had thought of comes through. And that happens for me in teaching. I have the theme of contentment or whatever, and as I'm teaching, some other concept flows through me that I had not thought of before. And it's brilliant. It's radiant. And I'm there like, oh my God, like, is anybody taking notes? Like, where is this even coming from?
Okay, but that's my question right there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you on so much of what you're saying, but and certainly there's an element that you have some say in, and then there's an element that you don't have some say in, and you can call that luck if you want to call that luck, or randomness. You can, but I tend to think that there's more behind the way things happen than that. And when you say something bigger comes through me, many yoga teachers have had that experience where you're like really in sync with the class that you're teaching, and you say some shit that you've never said before.
Yeah.
And it was the exact right thing to say on that day. And maybe someone comes up to you after class and actually acknowledges that and is like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. And you're like, oh my God, I got to write that down. Or it even becomes part of your regular teaching if you can remember it, which usually you can, if it's that significant.
Yes, yes.
But my question about that is, and for a long time, I embraced that as just coming from the unknown, like let the mystery be. But then I think it becomes very hard to distinguish when those things are what's coming through and when those things are coming through are really as true, because there's all kinds of other influences that come into play. And I guess this question I have around this idea of like unlimited freedom, because it does feel to me like that teachings, and this is in Tantra and in yoga in general, it leads to a sort of like, you can do whatever you want, or like you have the power, or like you become God. And that makes me very, very nervous. And even personally, when I engaged practices in a certain way, when I was really into kind of the Tantra that you're talking about, which I have moved a little bit away from, I have to say, but I was doing practices and having experiences, seeing colors and seeing and having different experiences. And at a certain point, I felt that it was very reckless. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have like someone guiding me. And even the teachers who do teach this stuff, a lot of times it's not clear. And I think that there are, I don't know how else to say it, like demonic forces out there that will disguise themselves. And maybe that sounds like a crazy thing to say, but I do think that we would want to know if things are coming through us or we're channeling something. Don't we want to know what we're channeling?
Yeah, but God saw what God did and said, that is good. You know what's good. You know in your heart. And
okay, so that's the question. Where's the moral code or whatever coming from? If it's random and based on luck and it has no. If you are hearing this message, then you're listening to the free version of Jay Brown Yoga Talks. To hear the rest of our conversation, please subscribe to Podcast Premium at jbrownyoga.com/premium.